Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a random live stream that I'm putting up right now, and I'm speaking to all the salesmen out there in the world that no matter what product you sell, no matter what program, what price, whatever it is, whatever tangible product that you sell, I needed to put a live stream together. Just of course, trying to practice and perfect my game, right? You might be like, "Yo, D, man, it's not even 9 in the morning on a Saturday, bro. Why don't you sleep in?" And the answer is, I just can't. I can't, boo boo. The reason being is because we have this limited amount of time, right, where we can build for ourselves. We can make an impact to those that are around us. And I feel that I have an obligation and a duty to not only assist the loyal followers and the subscribers on all the channels, all the platforms at Sales Remastered for the support that you've given, all the comments, all the likes, which, by the way, if you're catching this right now, do me one solid, hit the like button. Let's play with these algorithm gods, whatever platform you're finding me on. And in this live stream, this random live stream, I'm going to speak to both sides of the audience. So I'm going to speak to both the purchase agents as well as the refinance agents. And we're going to take together, you and I, we're going to take a minute to look at it from kind of a third point of view, right? Like a third party looking in. And I think my real intent here in this live stream is to kind of give you a refresher. You know what I mean? Like, it's March 2nd, wherever you find yourself right now in this year, or however your year to date has looked thus far. I want you to take away some of the gold nuggets that I'm going to drop in this live stream, because I'm going to share with you some content that hasn't been released, and then I'm going to share with you some content that I did in a private seminar that I think is going to serve a great deal of value of how to market yourself. And I just got done with my morning session, my morning routine, which is going to the gym and getting your body moving, getting your blood flow going. And I want to, I didn't even announce this live stream. So if you are catching it on the live, I appreciate your attention. And I'll be putting the comment box up here pretty shortly. But I'm also going to share with you some of the testimonials from the audience of Sales Remastered, with the hope that you can relate to some of these individuals who, found themselves in a situation where they didn't necessarily have the resources available to them. They didn't necessarily have, the guidance or the mentoring. They didn't have a channel like this at Sales Remastered. And I want you I want to put a full disclosure out there. All the information that I give to you right now, it's only going to work if you decide to use it, right? And we have such a wide range of options that are available online. You got Grant Cardone, you got other sales influencers like Jeremy Miner. You have all these influencers in these channels that give you a wealth of information. And at the end of the day, really what it is it's content that's going to help you, of course, depending on the platform. If you're like a retail agent or you're a call center agent, it's pretty spot niche. But what I'm going to share with you here is going to apply to everything. It's going to apply to marketing. It's going to apply to selling. And again, the reason why I said no matter what program or what price or product or platform, on some of the resources that we have, because I think that day after day we can sometimes kind of get lost in the process. And so you'll know you're lost in the process because you might kind of just be burnt out at times, or you might dread kind of taking part of that process. And this last week I had an upload that talked about systems, like the system of successful selling. And I think that any successful entity, whether it's a business, individual, or even a team, there is a very effective system in place. And I share with you multiple videos. I think I've just crossed the 500 video mark throughout the channels that I have. And I think that of course, that's a wide range of information, right? So every video has random topics, from marketing to selling to negotiating to mindset development. And I think there are a lot of ingredients that when put together properly, creates ultimately an efficient system. And so, I was part of a podcast this week. I was interviewed from a Salesman podcast, which is really big in the UK. And I was fortunate enough it being my second time on this podcast. And the topic of that particular interview had to do with mindset development, like the importance of mindset and systems that you could put in place to create and foster the right mindset that you need. And it brought back so many memories because, we talked about how it wasn't coming up in the industry or coming up just basically in life. And whatever your background is, whether you grew up middle class, you grew up rich, or you came from poverty, I think I think at the end of the day, your surroundings and your environment are going to be a heavy influence on how you perceive things. And mindset as a whole, I believe it's all about how we perceive things and how we react to certain things. And so I want to share with you this topic because most salesmen right now, it unfortunately, I think that a lot of salesmen who are not reaching their full potential or not hitting the numbers that they want to reach primarily is because of their perception. It's their view of their job. And I want to be real raw with you in this live stream because I need to kind of break you down, right? Like I need to kind of hit some of the sensitive spots that we may not necessarily put out there because human nature, human instinct, we're designed to protect ourselves. So there's a lot of things that we won't necessarily admit to. But just so you understand, I'm in sales too. I'm currently in sales. I'm currently in the trenches. So I go through the same grinds you do. I get hung up on. I leave messages that never get answered. I have to explain why the sky is blue. I have to, be patient just like you do. And all we're doing every single day is we're trying to figure out how can I get through to the prospect or through to the lead in an effective way so that they give me their trust, their loyalty, their sense of urgency. And I personally have been in sales for almost half my life. You know what I mean? Like I'm 38 years old, and I've relied on sales for a very long time, even through like school. But where it comes down to today, I rely on it to feed my family. I rely on it to pay my bills. And but if you think about it, if you're the same way, salute to you. If you're new into sales, salute to you again. We rely on this sport or this craft and this skill to develop the foundation that we need, or at least the income that we need to pay for what it is that we want, or to pay for our daily living, right? And so if we understand that the only way that we can really improve the quality of our lifestyle, the quality of everything that we have, from our living, our house, our whatever, if you're in an apartment, if you're renting or whatever, I think the idea is how far do you want to go? And if you're coming into this industry, or if you're coming into your job, or you're looking at your day-to-day process as just to get by, then I think we're missing and we're leaving a lot of money on the table, because there is so much opportunity right now, from the way that we can communicate. Look, I'm on a live stream right now, so this is going to live on forever. And wherever you catch this, wherever you are mentally, wherever you are financially, I think that some of the information and the content that I'm gonna drop here in this live stream is going to help you look at it in a different way, right? And so the question really that comes down to, and this is a question that was asked to me on that podcast, was that, how important is mindset? How important is it to develop the right habits and the right routines? And my answer was, it was very important, because if there's no actual path that you have set in place, if there's no real reason why you're doing what you do every day, you're just going to have a hard time, right? You're going to get hung up on, you're going to get rejection, you're going to get times where you're at your low. Maybe your production spiked up one month and then it dwindles down, and then it spikes up again and then it dwindles down. And that's what I always talk about in my videos, about that roller coaster income. And too many salesmen live their life that way. And it's unfortunate because it's always putting you in a sense of scarcity. It's putting you in a sense of single day that makes the difference. And so if you want to really understand and develop a secure path of how to reach that next level, I think it really comes down to studying some of the processes and some of the good habits that a lot of successful salespeople have. And whether you find it on another channel, whether you find it in your environment and surroundings, I want to let you know you don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of answers out there that, if as long as you want it, you'll find it, right? Like, as long as you look for it, you can get it. And it all comes down to choice. And so I think that's why the mindset is important, is because you need to understand what pushes you. And this is why, through a lot of the content that I release, I'm talking about understanding what pushes your prospect, because if you understand that, you can make them act. And if you understand what pushes you, you can then act on it, right? You can execute, you can do what it do. And so in this live stream, what I want to do is take a couple minutes to kind of give you my feedback of where I am today, because I'm fortunate enough to work with hundreds of loan officers all throughout the country. And I think that one thing that is true is that we as salesmen, we don't necessarily admit what we fear. We don't admit kind of the weaknesses that we have. And I'll be a mediator where I'll tell you that you're not the only one. And it's enlightening, because I too was at this point where I didn't have the resources. I didn't know what I was doing. I was lost. I was scared, and I was living through that roller coaster income. I was at a point of scarcity. And when I was at that point, what happened was it was more or less it was the fear and the anxiety that made me work extra hard, right? Like, but what happens though is, when you are operating from a place of fear, scarcity, and anxiety, you don't have the person's best interests at heart. You only have your interests at heart, because you have to climb back up, right? And so the funny thing is though, is that you have to flip that, because what we do as salesmen is we actually serve solutions. We help people solve problems. And if we just looked at it in that way, I think that instead of, and I'm, I get it, because again, I'm in sales. We have somewhat of a biased opinion, because we have to be very protective of our time. And so we'll look at certain lead sources or certain prospects, and we'll judge them like, oh, this person probably won't buy, or look at his last name, I bet you they're worried about price, I bet you they're worried about rate. And I want to be real with you, is that regardless if you reach success in making that sale or you don't, you're gonna learn from it. And I can't stress that enough, is because as salespeople, we have this anxiety and fear of being rejected or losing or failing, because the side effect of that means no income. It means no money. It means no way to feed your mouth. It means no way to pay your bills. And what's true is that if we continue to operate from that place of fear and anxiety and scarcity, it's just gonna continue in that way. And it really has to do with the way we look at what we do. Here, let me give you an example. So if you go into your job, or you just got your license primarily because you saw some other dude or some other chick driving a fancy car, they're making over 10K a month, right? And you're like, whoa, 10 grand a month. And that was the whole reason why you joined this force. I want you to know that's the reason why we all joined this force, right? But you have to develop a selfless type attitude, where you really do have good intention for those that you engage with, and those that you end up helping, which ultimately becomes your clients. And if you come at it from a place where, like those old sales tactics, like be aggressive, be aggressive, right? You're going to burn yourself out, but you're also going to push people away now, because people are now more intelligent. Our consumers are more intelligent. Not only that, but they're more equipped with resources that enables them to literally pick up their phone, right? Like, they could pick up their phone, push a button, and they'll have 9 of your competitors calling them to sell them the exact same thing that you give. And this doesn't even have to be mortgage loans. It could be literally anything that you could think of. And what I think that we sometimes miss is that is that when we have an opportunity to help somebody, as long as we turn the focus solely on them, we can truly help them, live a better life, live a better lifestyle, right? And so before I go into this session, what I want to do is I want to pull up a testimonial, and this is from somebody who actually, I work with, and we have mentoring sessions. And this particular person was a server, so they weren't in sales. They didn't come from a sales background, but they came from a serving background. And coming into an environment where he didn't necessarily have the resources, he had no choice but to look for resources online. And fortunately, he found the channel at Sales Remastered, and I want you to hear his story, okay? So check this out.
Just to introduce myself, my name is Solomon. I recently got into mortgage, banking, right? I've never had any sales experience before this. I was a server at a Korean barbecue restaurant and one of five. And so I found Sales Remastered on YouTube. And, fortunately, every day to work, I was always, just absorbing Sales Remastered, the concept itself. And so, things that I experienced when, I was first on the phone was I was just nervous. And when objections came up, I was like, oh, I was just frozen. And I would be awkward in the call, right? They would be like, oh, but I don't want to pull social. And I'm like, oh, but you need to. And then they would just hang up. And, I had trouble pulling social. I had trouble pitching, the whole deal. I didn't get my first, actual close for about 2 to 3 months. And at that point, sales, I'd say a couple of months ago, I bought the sales, the closing secrets, right? And then it helped me out immensely. And then I also was invited out to a seminar by Daniel from Sales Remastered. And then he basically just showed me the proof, and it's custom tailored, right? Every problem I have, it's custom tailored so that he gives me the answer for me, but then also it's shareable on the actual website so that other LOs, as a community, we're all learning and growing. And so without him, I wouldn't have made, 20 grand around there. And, it's going to keep on going. It's going to keep on going. And I appreciate that. I appreciate Sales Remastered. I appreciate you, Daniel. Thank you so much, man.
So as you could see, Solomon, that particular student, he's genuine, right? Like, and so he went through the same challenges and the same kind of battles that we all go through, and it's really just a matter of kind of getting more comfortable. And I'm seeing a lot of salesmen right now, like whether you're on purchase or refinance, I think that a lot of us do get too caught up with how we're being perceived, right? Because we're too worried about what other people think. We're too worried about how our prospects are looking at us at that time, and at that time of engagement. And again, it's coming from a place of fear that we don't want to look dumb, we don't want to sound dumb. We hope that they like us, because the side effect of them really liking us and us doing it successfully is going to result in a sale. And the sale is important because, again, it gives us not only security in our job, but it's going to enable us to to make the income that we need, right? Otherwise, if you're in sales right now and you're not successfully making sales, if you really think about it, you're making just either base salary or just a very low hourly. And there's a reason for that, because if in sales you have to be motivated to make sales, right? Otherwise, what the hell are you doing? And the upside is, though, is that if you can learn how to motivate yourself, if you can learn how to be self-efficient, if you can learn how to properly create a systematic process that drives your prospects to the end goal, which is a closed sale and agreements, right? Like, they have to agree with you, they have to buy into you. You're just going to get more results. You're going to get to really understand that, and you're probably having these challenges because you're losing more sales than you're winning. You look inward, and sometimes, again, through the process of protecting yourself, you start to analyze things and start blaming. Like, you blame the leads, you blame your employment, you blame your sales team, you blame your sales manager, you blame the market, you blame the rate, you blame the cost. And if that's you right now, that's fine. We all go through that. You just need to understand that is very common, number one. But number two is, it's really going to take self-awareness. It's going to take you to kind of check your ego at the door and really, really accept it. Like, hey, man, I kind of do, because a lot of times we don't necessarily know we're doing it. There's this agent that I know where he consistently blames his past. Like, so if he's having a tough time right now and he's having a challenging time on generating sales, it's always because of his past. It's always because of his past employer. It's always because he never did it that way. It's always because something else, as opposed to actually fixing the problem from the root level, from where it is, right? Like it's actually him, and it's his choices, and it's their choices. And so what's odd though is that he didn't realize that he was doing it. He didn't realize that he was choosing to blame things because it was just so natural to him. And so I get asked a lot, like, hey man, how do you do it so clean, man? It's just so natural to you. Well, it's natural because you develop these habits and it's just become systematic. And so, like, I had an agent that asked me, like, hey man, how do you do that with your tonality? Like, you're able to kind of create like a rhythm and a beat that just attracts and kind of transfer emotion. Is because, again, time after time I've said it, is that selling is a transference of emotion. And you can't transfer the proper emotion if you're too worried about yourself and how you're coming off and if you're going to mess up, because all you're focused on is you. And if you just look at it in a different way and you actually focus on the person that you're communicating with, and you really look at it as like, someone came over to your house and they're just looking for the bathroom. Like, are you going to be worried about, are you going to be worried about, like, whoa, man, what are they going to think of me when I tell them the answer? No, you're going to help them, right? Because you understand where your bathroom is, or if they're looking for this one location that you go to all day, it's kind of like giving person directions, right? Like, if someone came up to you and they were lost and they needed to get to this place that you know exactly where it's at, and you know exactly how to get there, are you going to waste your time, go back and forth and ask questions? Are you going to stutter? Are you going to be worried if whether or not they take your advice? No, right? Because you're so confident that you've been there so many different times. Like, the back ways, the shortcuts, you've been there. So visually, mentally, confidence wise, you've already done that before. And so I think that if we look at it in that way, as opposed to, oh no, will this person like me if I give them directions, or oh no, will they take my advice, or oh no, because we don't give a fuck, right? We don't care if they took our advice. And you have to come off that way to your prospects, in essence. I know it sounds weird, but you have to sound like you don't care if they hire you, you don't care if they buy from you. Because when you care too much if they're going to buy from you, or you care too much if they're going to like you, you're actually going to stand in your own way and prohibit them from actually liking you. I know it's fucking weird, right? But the psychology of it is really amazing, and that's something that I've always been fascinated about. And what I'm noticing is that emotional intelligence really is the fundamental of selling. You need to understand not only how to read people, but you need to look at it from, again, like a third party looking in. And you can't just be focused on how you look, on how you sound, and whether or not they like you, because then you're taking away the focus from, well, how can I help this dude, or how can I help this lady, or how can I help this guy? I know my product, I know my service. How can I serve this person value? And whether you're brand new, whether you're intermediate, whether you're seasoned, if you fell off, like your year to date right now isn't exactly where you want it to be, you have a choice, right? You have a choice to accept it and just move on, right? Like, whatever happened in February and January, there's nothing you could do to change that. It's happened, bro. But if you allow it to weigh you down, where you're not able to move forward and grow because you're living in the past, you're going to be very much like that one agent that I just explained to you, who consistently blamed their past. They consistently blamed the resources that they had before, or how it was in their old shop. And that's just, it's old news, it's history. And so, a message to the purchase agents. I want to share with you guys something that I put together, and this was put together on is marketing. And I think that this is an important topic for purchase agents. Like, if you're out right now trying to solicit realtors, if you're out right now trying to find referral partners, I think that this is going to be key to your success, is understanding that it really comes down to providing value. Because I think that sales agents who are or are in a purchase division, they have a little bit of a different sale. And if you're in a meaning you're if you're a retail loan officer and you're out trying to find realtors and set appointments to realtors, I think that you have, because what you're doing is you're now business to business sales. And why I think it's B2B sales is because you're really selling an entrepreneur. You're selling someone who's technically self-employed, and a realtor is self-employed. And so what I found is that, every retail loan officer ultimate desire, their ultimate goal is to become a preferred lender, right? And I see it time after time again that there's just these chains of false beliefs that the realtor just wants the fastest turn time, or the realtor just wants updates or marketing support. And what I've experienced time after time again with these agents is that they're just getting beat up. And the reason why they're getting beat up is because these realtors have already been pitched 900 times. You ever get that? You ever call a realtor and they just don't call you back, or they just say, I got a relationship already? Do you know why? Is because to that realtor, you sound like a telemarketer. To that realtor, you sound just like a hungry, desperate LO. That's really what it comes down to. And so what happens with these agents is they continuously relive this story of just rejection, and they don't understand why. And so what I did, with my experience and going through that experience myself, is I had an idea, and I said, well, okay, well, what if we turn it around? What if we didn't come at them, anxious for an appointment, right? So ultimately what we do is we find ourselves constantly asking for something, right? We're always asking for a meetup. We're always asking to drop in and maybe drop off some donuts or some pastries or some flyers or some whatever it is, pen with your logo on it. Ooh, you're always asking for an opportunity to work with them. You're asking them for their turn downs. You're asking them if you can provide them with your DPA access or your non-QM products. You're asking for business. And what I found is that we need to stop that. That's really the only way that we're going to attract them. Because the reason why it pushes them away is because everyone is asking them, right? Like everyone. Tell me your neighbors aren't doing that. Tell me your team is not talking about, like, hey, all you got to do is just set up a meeting, right? Set up a meeting. And then after that, you got to bribe them, give them a finder's fee, which is highly illegal, by the way. Promise them fast turn times. Tell them that you can help them with their marketing. Like, this is just a broken record playing over and over and over again. And what happens is that, as you're doing this is just eating up all your time. As you're trying to go to these meetings and you're driving all around town and you're dropping into these broker shops and you're talking about these non-QM products that you have. Ultimately, that's just you burning your time, because these agents, they get pitched at all the time. I don't know if you guys have ever been in like in a retail shop where you got title vendors coming around all the time, account executives coming around all the time. Maybe they might bring you donuts, they might bring you pens, notepads, earphones or whatever. And at the end of the day, you kind of get used to it, right? Like, oh, here comes another account executive. Yeah, thanks. And they ask you for the business or whatever in exchange for a notepad. And so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but oftentimes it does not work. And so if you continue to try to bribe them with whining and dining, you're only going to be viewed at as as kind of just that person that tries to buy their love. And so what I figured out was that if we could just simply reverse engineer our goal, right? So on the left hand side, you're going to see the goal. And the ultimate goal for a retail loan officer soliciting realtors and looking for purchase business is that they truly just want to set meetings, right? Like you're calling realtors, you're trying to talk them into having coffee with you, which is a whole nother awkward meeting, because then what do you talk about, right? Like sometimes you might be lost for words. So I'm going to help you today in this live stream and what to say and how to approach them. But ultimately, you're setting these meetings because you're trying to build realtor relationships. And so what that sounds like when you're having coffee with them is, how can I help you, right? Like the last thing you want to do is ask them how you can help them, because they're, like, how do they answer that? They don't know you. They don't know your resources. And too often times I hear loan officers getting beat up on these little coffee meetings, or getting no return from it because the context of that meetup is just all wrong. It's a loan officer going in talking about access to 14-day close times, and non QM programs or DPA programs, and everyone has that, right? Like everyone, like you can get it with anyone. So what makes you different? And then you ask in that meeting for referral business, don't you? Like, hey man, let me have an opportunity to work with your next client, or let me have an opportunity to pre-approve your next buyer, right? Like that's you're asking them to basically step in into their business, and that's what feeds their family. That's what feeds them, and that's a risk. And sometimes we don't understand that because we were taught the wrong way to ask them for referrals. Like, but who are you? Right? That person has relationships already. And then, of course, after you ask for referral business, the idea is to get a steady stream of deals, right? It just sounds so simple. Like, man, all I got to do is have coffee with them. All I got to do is just create bond and rapport, and we'll create a relationship where they just give me all their referrals, and then I'll just get a consistent stream of leads and deals, and man, I'm gonna make big bucks. Right? So on the right hand side, if you notice, all I did was just reverse it. And so I thought, like, okay, well, the goal is to get big bucks, right? But you have to be empathetic. And so you have to deliver your message in a way where you're actually helping them get big bucks. Now that's the thing, is that you're actually flipping it. So instead of going there and trying to find how you can get big bucks, just like with our prospects, right? We have to actually be about them. But the problem is, though, that a lot of us salesmen, we have these blinders on, and we just have kind of this biased view where we're just looking out for ourselves, which is okay. That shit, go get yours. But at the end of the day, it really has to be about the other person. So what if you went to your meetings and you had your next sit down with the realtor, and you're just focused on them, right? Like you're focused on helping them make big bucks. And so how do you do that? Well, you have to basically plant the seeds of how you're going to be able to give them a steady stream of deals. Stop thinking of how you're going to get a steady stream of deals, because what's the upside for them, right? Like, hey man, do you mind giving me all your deals? What the fuck? You have to be delivering value. You have to teach them on how you can give them a steady stream of deals. And then what happens is we can create this referral business. Like, I'm referring you pre-approved buyers. I'm sending you to your open houses, pre-approved, vetted out, pre-understood about them. That's what creates a relationship, right? Because they look at you in a different light than they see these other loan officers who just wants to bug them all day, who just wants to drop by and give them bagels in exchange for risking their business to work with you. And then of course, that is how you actually set meetings, is you have to flip the script. And so, at the end of the day, realtors don't want coffee. They don't want meetings. They don't want pitches or even promises. What they really want is they want certainty. Because again, a realtor is very much like a self-employed entrepreneur. They run their business. They typically don't get paid any base. They don't get any salary. And so their cost of living is determined, right? Like their ability to provide and survive within this industry is going to be based on how many closes they make. Unlike us as loan officers, sometimes we get a base salary, sometimes we get a draw, sometimes we get a guarantee. And so we got kind of that safety net, whereas these realtors that we're trying to approach, they don't have that. They don't have that security. So they're not necessarily going to let just, Joe down the street who bought me coffee come in and tamper with their pipeline, because that pipeline is what feeds them, is what keeps them alive, right? What they want also is help. They want help to get in front of more qualified buyers. They want help to get more steady deals. They want help to get closer to the money, and they want to be able to rely on you. Like, can I rely on you? Like, it's not a matter of if you have 14 days. The bottom line is, if this realtor gives you their business, can they rely on you? Are you reliable? Are you going to pick up the phone? Are you going to be accountable, right? But more importantly, what they want is leads. So if you can give them more opportunities to make more money, that is what they want. They don't want your donuts. They don't want your promises and education of non-QMs, right? And so what gives them this is you have to relay confidence. And so if you think about the last time you had to sit down with a realtor at a coffee shop, your it's going to be through your demeanor and your body language. And typically, when a loan officer goes and meets with a realtor, they act as if they're applying for a job. And so they might sit up straight, they might bring a notepad, they might ask these real cheesy questions. But the thing is, though, is that these realtors, they're salesmen too, and they understand when they're trying to be sold or you're trying to sell them. They understand when you are inauthentic, and there's just this kind of this biased tone to your voice where all you want is to feed yourself. And so they're gonna call you out on that, and they're gonna read it through your body language. They're gonna hear it through your tone and the words that you use. And so what we can give them, though, through confidence and knowing that we deliver value, so we want to help them, right? So instead of trying to ask them for coffee and asking them how you can help them, flip it on them and say, hey, you know what? Like if you're calling out to set up a meeting, try this. So blame it on your lead, like your team lead. So let's say your team lead's name was Ryan, right? And you're calling out to realtors. What you want to do is you want, or your broker, like the manager or the owner of your branch. Let's say their name was Ryan. And so if I'm calling out to realtors, number one is I need to understand who I'm targeting. So I'm not going to call anyone with just the realtor license number, right? So I'm gonna kind of divvy it up. And in my community, I'm gonna find maybe 5 to 10 top hitters, like producers. These are sharks. These are people that are making moves, and those are the kind of like the dream team, right? And those realtors, I'm not necessarily going to approach them and ask them for coffee because I'm not ready. I'm just simply not ready yet. When you first approach a realtor who's making moves, the last thing you want to do is ask that man for some coffee or a sit down, because they don't have no time. Those are busy businesses. But what I will do, though, is I'll look for maybe newer realtors, right? Or intermediate realtors, just others that I can practice on. And what I'll do is let's say my manager, the owner of my branch, his name is Ryan, right? And then let's say the realtor's name was Jim. Like, hey Jim, Ryan wanted me to reach out to you. We're doing a campaign within your local area, and we're noticing that you may have some open houses coming up, and we think that it'd be a good opportunity to maybe send some pre-approved buyers to your open houses. But first, before we even open up that topic, we want to make sure that you're a good fit for our campaign. And what I can do is I could set up a meeting with you. If you're a good fit, I can send you a steady stream of pre-approved buyers. And this we only really allow for reliable realtors. And what I mean by reliable or trustworthy realtors that don't send our buyers or our pre-approved buyers and our clients to their preferred lender, or they don't send it to their loan officer buddy for kickbacks. And if you are one of these loyal realtors, then possibly we can open up a relationship where we just steadily send you business, pre-approved leads. And these leads will go to your open houses. They'll use you for your access to properties, and we just need to know and have confidence in you that you won't necessarily take them away or solicit them to work with your partners. Anyway, I'll tell you more about it if necessary. But what are you doing 2 o'clock tomorrow? Maybe we can meet up, or I can drop by, or we can meet up for some coffee. And when you present it that way, now it's a completely different context, right? Now it's like, oh shit, okay, what the realtor heard was completely opposite from what other LOs are telling them. Other LOs are just trying to ask them, to meet up for some coffee, and how can I win your business? How can I become your preferred lender? And if you bring it in that way and you finally get that sit down, now the sit down is really about assessing them, right? Now you've flipped the script. Instead of sounding like an applicant to an employer, what you now sound like to that realtor is you sound like you're actually they're applying to work with you. Now the dynamics of that conversation is completely changed, but you have to have confidence when you're doing this, right? Because whether you have campaigns or not, whether you have pre-approved buyers or not, they don't know, right? Like they don't know you. And so it's the same effect if you're saying like, hey man, we could do 14-day closes, but you don't know if you can. You don't know what happens in the middle of escrow. You don't know if something's going to happen on the inspection. You don't know if something's going to happen with the appraisal. You don't know if your borrower is going to go buy a new car. So you don't really know, but you're confident when you're promising it, aren't you? So be confident also when you're telling them about the upside of possibly working for you. And so much like how I teach the students in Sales Remastered and the Sales Bootcamp, to be the one that's hard to get, because if you play like you're hard to get, or if you play like you're selective with who you work with, the person you're telling the message to will actually want to work with you even more. And so when you're sitting down with these realtors at a coffee shop or at their office or at your office, the context and the energy of that conversation should really be all about building the curiosity, right? And so it may sound something like this, like hey, uh, Jim, right? All right. So in today's meeting, what I want to do is I want to make sure that you would be a good fit to work with us on a particular campaign that's happening in your area. And so what I'm going to do is just ask a few basic questions. If everything looks good, then maybe we can try out a couple of transactions with you where we send you some of our pre-approved buyers that are already looking for homes within your area, whether we send them to your open houses or we connect them with you so you could start showing them some properties. But before we do that, let me ask you right now, what are you currently doing to generate your business? Like what are you doing to generate your leads? How are you finding your buyers right now? And what's going to happen is they're going to tell you, right? Like they're going to tell you, oh, I market, or my broker puts us on social media, or I market with the local grocery stores, right? Like whatever they tell you, you have to take note, because that serves as value for your next realtor meetings. And so if you find out in your next realtor meeting that someone isn't doing one of those things, you can actually open up the idea when you actually pitch that particular realtor. And the pitch does not happen in that first meetup. The pitch does not, and I can't stress that enough, you are not selling the realtor in that first meetup. In that first meetup, it's all about assessment. It's all about pre-qualifying them to work with you. Now it's different, right? The energy, the words, and the context of that message is completely different. And what happens is you have control. But anyway, as you're taking notes as to what they're doing to generate their leads and getting their business, you're just taking note, right? You're not selling them anything. You're not saying, oh, have you tried this, or you should do this. No, you got to wait. You be patient, because you're going to serve that on the pitch, on the sale to that realtor, and I'll tell you how that sounds like. But after you find out what they're doing, then you want to figure out what they don't like about the finance process. So ask them something like this, like, okay, and if there's a few things that you could change about the pre-approval process working with your financial partners or your preferred lender, what would those things be? Like, what would you change? What do you not like about the finance process? And then they're going to tell you, right, that every single thing that they tell you is the weakness of their preferred lender. Every single thing that they tell you is going to become the how can I put it, the context of how you pitch them later on. And so if they say, I just hate the fact that this lender takes too long, or they never answer their phone, or the processors are inadequate. These are the things that you're going to sprinkle into your pitch. So write them down. But again, I can't stress enough, it's not a time to sell them. All you're doing is listening. And so after they tell you every single thing that they want to change, then you ask them, okay, what is your business like now? How much are you closing today, like this month? How much are you closing on average per month? And what is your goal for this year? And this is very, very important, because what they tell you, whether they want to close 2 average per month or they want to close 3 average per month, is going to let you know what type of producer they are. There are some realtors out there right now that do one close every quarter, right? Like, are you going to aggressively hunt for that dude? Like, no, right? Because they probably do it part-time, or they're not necessarily a producer. So it's going to help you protect your time, and it's going to help you classify that particular realtor, because you need to understand, subprime. They're not going to have the necessary credentials. And so, the best way to really go about it, besides asking them what their goals are, is to really find out where they want to go. How ambitious are they? And that's going to let you know of how much time you should invest with them. But more importantly, when you go to sell them and pitch them, which is not in that first meeting, you're gonna have all the ammunition you need to craft a perfect pitch. And so when you revisit, when you follow up with that realtor, you could say, hey, you know what? After our meeting, I put some information together, and based on your current method of marketing with the local grocery store, and having your broker just put you on social media, and with your experience with your preferred lender of them not answering the phone or having shoddy processing, and with your goals of wanting to close 5 sales per month, and your goal is to close 100 sales this year, I think that and then you go into the pitch, because what you're doing is you're actually framing them much like you would a prospect. Does that make sense? So now you paint the picture and the path of how this person would be a good fit to work with you. Just that in itself, by changing it, and I got plenty of content that actually goes over that in detail, but in short, the best way to attract someone is to know what they need. And what these prospects need is not empty promises. They don't need, DPA education. They don't need your little flyer or your pen with your logo on it. What they need is, they need certainty, they need business, they need deals, they need leads. That's what they need. Now, the question is, well, okay, well, how do I find those leads, right? And one of the modules that I have within my training course teaches you how to brand yourself. And again, like I said earlier, the technology advancement that we have right now, it's amazing. You have all these social media channels that puts you in front of those leads, and it puts you in front of the people that could very well follow you for information that they need, whether they're trying to buy a house, or they're trying to refinance, or they need a realtor. And you could use these social media platforms, but the thing is, though, is that how are you using them? Are you using them like every other loan officer? Is your brand page right now sprinkled up with NMLS ID numbers and fine print and APRs? And does it look like an infomercial? Right? Does it look like a commercial? Like when you go to your business page, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram, does it look like a commercial? And you have to be real with yourself, because without empathy, you're not going to look at it from the view of your prospects, right? Or just an everyday consumer. And one thing is that we sometimes forget how platforms is all of its distractions. And so our prospects, our consumers, are being distracted multiple times per day. There's like some statistic where they said like every single day, we unknowingly, like just going through life, are pitched or solicited hundreds of times per day, because we see commercials, or we see advertisements, or we see junk email, and all of it is just distractions. And so how do you stand out? And how you stand out is you actually bring value, right? You actually bring information that genuinely helps that particular person overcome a challenge that they need, much like kind of like what I'm doing on my channel, right? Like I've created a community. I've got about 20,000 followers throughout all the platforms now, and it's just all about bringing value, right? I'm not always pitching a product. I'm not always pitching my course. I'm actually really focused on helping provide value. Now, granted, I do pitch my course, or I do offer my course, but at the end of the day, it's because I know that it's information that's needed. And so if you're not looking at your sales process this way, if you're not really analyzing your brand page in that way, you're actually going to push people away. Instead, create a community, being creative, and what you do is you end up farming a ton of leads. These ultimately becomes leads for you, right? And so the easiest way to get attention is to know where the attention is already, and where it's at are these platforms. So Facebook, there's 2.2 billion people just active. There's monthly active users on Facebook. That puts you in front of 2.2 billion. Now, I know not all of them, but that's worldwide, right? So not all of them are going to be in your community, but damn, shit, let me get a little piece of that 2.2 billion. Let me just get 100, right? Let me just get 200. Let me get 1,000. And if I got this community, what happens is, if you get 100 people, then you might be able to give them some content that they would share to their network. And that person has, let's say, 700 friends, or 500 friends, or 3 cousins, or 2 sisters that also needs that information. And then they share it with their sister. That sister shares it with their friend. And then their friend happens to be a nurse, part of this community. And then it just trickles. It kind of goes viral. Does that make sense? YouTube, man, 30 million daily active users. That's nuts, right? So that could put you in front of a ton of people, couldn't it? Instagram, 500 million. So the attention is already here on these platforms. It's already there. Like, you just need to know how to properly use it. And so what happens is, when you identify how to use it, you then crack the code. Basically, you have what they need. You have what the realtor needs. And that's what's going to relate confidence, is because you have their ticket to get more deals. You have what they're looking for, and what they're looking for when they spend 7 hours at an open house is they're looking for opportunity. They're looking for a qualified buyer to buy that house so they can move on to the next. That's what they're looking for. And so if we knew that the attention was already on social media, and we can creatively create a brand page where we foster these leads, we're not relying on anyone. right? We're not relying on an internet aggregate lead. I'm not relying on Lending Tree. I'm not relying on NerdWallet. Like I got a community that gives me the opportunity to open it up to these realtors, and that's how you create a relationship. And so you want to collect, results and testimonials, create a community. Then you could farm what the realtor needs and attract them. You attract people into your community by giving them great information, giving them helpful information. You're not giving them a pitch. You're not selling them what today's 30-year fixed rate is. You're creating a connection based on the information and value you're giving that community. And what happens is when you earn that trust and you earn that authority, or that you position yourself as an expert, they'll listen to you. And so if you give them instruction to get pre-approved, then what do you have is you have a lead for a realtor, right? That's how you position yourself to solicit the dream team. And so the dream team was the top realtors that are making moves within your area, right? Because instead of approaching a top producing realtor and asking them for coffee and asking them how if you can help with their turn downs, imagine if you can approach a top producing realtor and saying, hey, I got 4 pre-approved buyers in your area and I know you're throwing an open house there. Can I send them your way? What do you think they're going to say? Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. I'm going to send them your way. If any of them show any interest, I'm actually going to connect them with you, or I'm going to connect their realtor with you so you guys can close up this deal. Right now, you position yourself a little bit more favorably, don't you? And of course, who this works for is not just realtors, right? Like the realtors aren't the only ones who need leads, right? Your community becomes your leads. And so insurance agents also need leads. And this can be a relationship that you can open with an insurance agent. These insurance agents do homeowners insurance policies, bro. Like if you understand that they're working with the same exact prospects that you're working with, then wouldn't they be able to give you a heads up if someone was asking for, let's say, a new homeowners insurance policy because they're going to go buy a home? Well, what if that insurance agent had a relationship with you and they gave you a heads up and said, hey, you know what, Alice is buying a house. They just asked me for a homeowner's insurance policy for a new home. Maybe I can have them give you a call to make sure that Alice is getting the best deal. But it can also happen for accountants. Accountants know people who need write-offs, right? Like, and if they don't own any real estate, then they can suggest that they contact you. Or if the accountant knows that someone's trying to retire, maybe they can forward you over that contact. Contractors also, contractors like the do home improvements or like remodeling, they can also give you business because sometimes the contractors meet with homeowners who have no way of financing the deal. Like they can only afford $20,000, but the contractor did a bid for, let's say, 40. So what happens? Does a contractor then have to do all the work for half the cost? No, they don't want to, right? So they want to be able to give the resources to the homeowner so that what if that person can call you to get that extra 20,000 or get that full 40,000? So you just got to be creative. Photographers also, they're especially like wedding photographers, because people typically buy houses right after they get married, don't they? So if you can find a way to penetrate these pockets of leads, then I think that you can. And I want you to know it's really not, you just have to have the right guidance. You have to have the right mentoring. And so a lot of the keys, right, within these techniques and this process and this system truly can be found within the secret formula. It can be found at Sales Remastered. It could be your property, and you can consume the information whenever you want. At times that are available to you. So you don't necessarily need to go every day to a particular class so that you have to sit there and study. Like a lot of my students consume the content in the course on their own time. So they consume the content within the course typically in the morning, and it helps them kind of get prepared for the day. But you have to choose some time to really study your craft, or you're going to have a real tough time. And I want to share with you another testimonial of a particular prospect a particular student who also took part in the course. And this particular student is a retail loan officer. So he's out meeting with realtors. He's out trying to solicit builders. And he shared a video testimonial with his experience, and I want to share it with you. So enjoy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Calvin Johnson, and I am a student of Daniel's on his sales bootcamp. And I just want to spend some time, say a couple words about what that course has done for me, what Sales Remastered has done for me. I've been doing it for a month now, you guys. I've been doing it for a month, and I'm telling you, it's doubled my business. Okay, it's completely doubled my business. You would think when I first started listening to it a few months ago, about 4 or 5 months ago, just listening to all the information he was putting on YouTube, I'm like, man, there's a lot of good stuff. I'm just like all up on that. I'm like, is there actually any more that you can get? When I got the course, there's a lot more. I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much more. I can definitely recommend that course. I will tell you guys, it's different from some of the other courses, and I've jumped in to try to, recraft my game and to see what things I can do different. So I've joined a couple other courses and bought a couple others. But with Daniel, man, it's not just hey, here's the course, follow this, there you go. No, you get coaching. Okay, you get real coaching. I look forward to our hour sessions every time, and just having that accountability, that structure, that stuff that you're able to talk to, and it's different for everybody. He's not just giving me the same spill that he gave another person just about an hour ago, because everybody is different, and you can see that when you're conversating with them. So that's something that I really take and enjoy when our coaching sessions come about. So I want to tell you guys again, man, if it's a blessing, it's been a blessing for me. I definitely recommend it for people who are seasoned or anybody who is new. Definitely a good course to take. I just wanted to really spend some time and say some good things about this course and what it's done for me. Thank you, Daniel. Hey, God bless. You guys enjoy the rest of your new year. Bye.
My name is Rania, and I'm an outside sales loan officer in Delray Beach, Florida. I have been in the mortgage industry going on 2 years now, and the majority of my business is purchase business. I found Sales Remastered as I was doing Google searches in December of 2018, basically just searching how I was going to make money as a loan officer in 2019. I was searching for some sort of edge, some sort of education, some mentorship, just basically anything that would set me apart from all the other loan officers in the area. When I found Sales Remastered, I knew it was something different from the start. Daniel's approach is completely different than all the other coaches that are available right now. Everything that the other coaches are telling you to do is completely opposite of what Daniel's telling you to do. And that resonated with me, and it just made the most sense. Being in this program has completely changed my outlook on how I do business. I don't leave anything up to chance anymore. I have intentions when I wake up every single day of what I'm going to do throughout the day. This program focuses on mindset, and mindset is huge in this industry. I listen to these videos when I'm at the gym every single morning before I go to work. The biggest takeaway I've taken from this program so far is you have to be a good salesperson if you're going to make any money in this industry. You can talk to people all day and let them know that you're very knowledgeable in mortgages and give them good advice, but if you can't close them, you're not going to make any money. I would definitely recommend Sales Remastered to any loan officer that's looking to take their business to the next level.
So as you've just heard, and I didn't realize that the mic was off when when I came back. So again, man, just can't seem to avoid these technical difficulties at times. But what I want you guys to really take away is that coaching and mentoring is absolutely fundamental, because if you're having issues with generating sales, then you're having issues with creating your income, right? Or generating income. And I think it's important to really find a mentor in your life. So basically what you need is obviously to find your own coach, find your own mentor, whether it looks like this dude or it looks like, maybe a top producer that's in your sales floor. If it looks like me, I kind of look like this dude, right? But for those of you who don't know, the Sales Boost Camp, which is a live course right now, it's a 6-week training course. I made an announcement that the price is actually increasing come April 1st. It's not an April Fool's joke. It's going up from $19.97 to $2009.97. And the reason for that is because there's just too many students now enrolling, which is a good thing, but it's taking up more of my time. And so I wanted to do a quick rundown with you of what's actually inside the Sales Boost Camp. What's inside of it is the actual secret formula. So that's the mid program that I have. It's not the lowest price; it's the middle price that it's currently selling for $9.97. The secret formula is really designed to help you understand the full spectrum of how to be a successful loan officer. And no matter what platform you have, retail, call center, what have you, it teaches you everything from marketing to communication or what have you. So that's actually inside the Sales Boost Camp. You get lifetime access to that. And much like Raina was just saying, who bought the Closing Secrets 101, is that's one of the lowest price programs. It's $4.97. You get lifetime access to that, but it teaches you how to close a sale, how to properly close a sale, so that you're not meeting so much resistance. You're not running into brick walls. You're not getting hung up on. You're not getting rejected as much, and you get full access to that. But you also get lifetime access to customer service and support. So anytime you're ever having any issues or you have questions or problems, my team assists you with that, and that's lifetime access. So as long as you're an enrolled student, you'll always have access to the support. And then, of course, you get exclusive access just inside the Sales Boost Camp. You have these modules. So you get exclusive access in that program to private mentoring coaching calls. So every other week we spend an hour together where we just focus in on just solely your issues, your challenges, your problems that you may be facing within your particular outfit or your employment. So if you're having issues with generating interest from realtors, or if you're having issues with selling your rate or your fees, you're able to cover those topics within our private coaching sessions. Besides that, you get exclusive access to the Mentors Library, which is basically a collection of certain mentoring sessions, the private mentoring sessions that I've had with some of the students already enrolled. And I'll upload them into this module consistently. So just this last week, for example, I added 3 new coaching sessions, which covers topics that sometimes students may not have brought up within that direct mentoring. And so they get a chance to hear of the solution through others' mentoring. So that's just a tremendous amount of value just within that mentoring library. But besides that, you get full access, exclusive access to my own personal templates and scripts. These are the scripts that I use right now, the copy rights that I use right now to persuade and influence more sales. You get direct access for it. So all you got to do is copy and paste into your own CRM, or copy and paste into your own emails, your own text messages, and you get the scripts and wording that I use right now to generate the income that I'm generating. So these are These are relevant techniques that currently work today. And then besides that, you also get exclusive access to the branding blueprint. This is what's going to teach you how to create your own brand, how to position yourself as a brand. And in the mentors library, there's I would say about a good 3 or 4 hours worth of content of how to create your own brand and how to stand out from everyone else. So in my opinion, I think the total value is well worth over 22,000, 23,000, because it teaches you how to do it over and over and over again. And so for it going right now for just $19.97 before it goes up to $29.97 come April 1st, I think it's a good opportunity to take action. But if all the course did, right, like your $2,000 investment, if all it did was put you in the top 5% of your company, would it be worth it? Ask yourself, how much are those individuals making at the top 5% of your company? Are they making over 10 grand? Are they making over 15, 20, 30? Are they part of the 1% top income earners in the country making over $360,000 a year? So what would it mean to be part of that group, right? For just a $2,000 investment? It's crazy, right? But what if it only helped you earn an extra sale per day, or even a couple per week, or just an extra 4 each month? If you did the quick math on how much you make per deal, per transaction, I've had students who invested, enrolled, and then made back their investment within the first month, because it typically only takes one deal to make back your investment, right? But the question is, would it be worth it? And then finally, what if all it did was give you back control of your time? So you're not out there like knocking on doors, you're not out there wasting your valuable time, but instead it helped you double your results and remove the grind from the things. I got students in there that tell me all the time, it feels like they're not even working anymore. It's not a grind anymore. And it's because they just simply understand how to do it. What if you understood how to do it? Would it be worth it? So basically, what I had to do is I had 2 choices. Number one is I can continue doing what I was doing at the time and wait for my time to earn. And what I'm talking about is when I was in this position where I needed the right mentoring, I needed the right guidance. There was a time where I didn't have the resources available, and you may relate, right? But I had an option. So I could have just stuck it through and went through the trial and error, or I can use a new method that I know worked for the elite and for those that I wanted to be like. And what that method was to basically find a mentor, to find a reliable coach. And so I want to be that person for you. And I think it's a good opportunity right now to take advantage of the price of the Sales Boost Camp. Get to work with me directly. I'll show you all the ins and outs, whether you're new, intermediate, or seasoned, and turn your career around. Like, take advantage of the opportunity that a lot of the students right now inside the course are doing, and they're seeing the return. And I want you to also experience that financial freedom. So I hope that this session was helpful for you. I know it was kind of just random live stream, but at the end of the day, I got a message to share with you. It's not just that the course is going to increase in a month, but I want you to know that it's there. So if you're done with the chase, if you're done with the grind, if you're done with the struggles, if you're done with the roller coaster income, let me show you how to put an end to that. And how you put an end to that is you go to salesremaster.com and enroll into the Sales Boost Camp. Get control over your finances. Get the answers that you need. Take the shortcut to the top, and that is the shortcut. It's just by investing in yourself. If you knew that you can invest in yourself so that you can gain the income, gain the production, gain the rewards, gain the experiences of being a top producer with just one small investment, wouldn't that be well worth it? Because you now know how to consistently do it month after month, year after year. When you hone in and you really understand the value of having a mentor who's currently doing what you're doing, I think you can really take control of your future and your success. So again, I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you so much for sharing some time with me. Hopefully this live stream brought to you some great value. Whether you invest in the course or not, it's completely your choice. But at the end of the day, I hope that the content that I shared with you is giving you some insight on how to look at your sales game, and that it teaches you how to be a successful loan officer in 2019. I wish you guys the best. I'll see you on the next video. Bye.